Viewers, welcome back to the second segment of Prophetic Insight. In the first segment, we took a look at the video concerning the Vice President of South Africa, CYRIL Ramaphosa. Gentlemen, I find it very interesting that this prophecy was made at the Life Haven. And the Life Haven is an amazing place. And for the prophet to initially start off and release that prophecy in Life Haven has to say something very profound about not only the impact, but the implications of the prophecy itself.
At times when you think really deep about such kind of prophecies, you may become emotional. The prophecy was given at Life Haven, but lives were preserved in the prophecy. Yes. The life of the Vice President of South Africa. If anything bad was to happen, we are also talking about the lives of the cabin crew. We are also talking about the life of his family. His family was kept together just because of this prophecy. Yes. And if anything was going to happen to him again, we are not sure about what would happen to the ordinary person in the street in South Africa. And Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa has said the word life is a prophetic word, and he is giving the prophecy at Life Haven, and he is preserving lives in the prophet. Yes. I find it to be very, very outstanding.
Yeah, that's true, man of God. I think it's not even coincidence that it took place at Life Haven, taking into account that the man of God, as we know, Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa, is a man who is mightily used by God.
Yes.
And with him, he walks with Jesus. Mm-hmm. And Jesus, the reason why he came to give us life, and life in abundance.
Yes.
And for that prophecy to have been given at Life Haven, it meant, obviously, that somebody was going to receive life. If not an individual, more than an individual, they were going to receive life. So I think it was not by coincidence that it was given at Life Haven. Sure. Yeah.
It's so amazing because the prophetic ministry is a ministry where you always hear what God is saying. Because there are two very interesting things about the prophetic ministry. God is always speaking and God is always doing. Yeah. And you need an individual like Prophet Makandiwa, because he starts off his prophecy and he says, I saw in the spirit as I was praying. Yeah. So he saw. And our God is a doing God. Yes. So there is stuff to see as he's doing. Yeah. And our God is also a speaking God. Mm-hmm. So there needs to be that reception, those ears to hear exactly what he is saying as he speaks. And I think that it's important for us to note that there needs to be an appreciation of the voice of God and appreciation to see what God is doing.
That's a very powerful statement. One of the most important things that makes a prophet, it's the fact that this is not a vocal ministry, but it's a doing ministry. One is made a prophet by the ability that they have to do something about any situation. So it doesn't end in just mentioning the names or places or what is about to happen, but one of the most important things that makes a prophet is his ability to do something about that situation. And this is exactly what we see in this particular prophecy.
Just to add on what you have just said, man of God, I think the prophetic ministry, as we have come to understand now, it's a ministry that utilizes even the senses that we have in the physical, sense of seeing, sense of hearing, taste, and so forth. And we hear the man of God saying, I saw, yes, as I was praying. So which means the sense of sight was at work when he saw. And as he saw, he began to hear and he began to engage himself in a conversation with God because of what he began to see. So it's a ministry that we are beginning to understand through the great man of God, Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa. Yes.
And I love what you said. You said the ministry of a prophet is a ministry where you hear God with every facet of your being.
Yes,
Your intestines, your chest, your legs, your toes,
yeah.
your nose, your mouth, your forehead.
Exactly.
And it's interesting because he says he was lying down on his bed and he looked up on the ceiling
Yes.
and he saw a sign. He saw a sign.
He saw a sign, yeah.
A sign may not be the actual thing, but it may be something pointing to the subject matter.
Yeah.
He saw a sign.
A sign may just be representing something.
Exactly.
It comes in a more of a similitude or a figure.
Yes.
And then you have to derive an interpretation from the sign. So which is exactly what was happening. He saw a sign. And as a result of that sign, he began to inquire from God, what is this all about? So it was all about utilizing every sense of the prophetic. And then that provoked his inquiry with God.
And I think there needs to be also a curious inquisition. Because if you're given a sign, you know you're about to start a journey. It's pointing you in a certain direction. So there needs to be a stirring to keep on pursuing the subject matter. Because he says, I saw a sign on the ceiling. A word that looked incomplete, like remaps. And that sign stirred him to inquire more into the meaning of what exactly God was trying to say to him. Pastor Kwaramba.
You mentioned that you saw a sign on the ceiling. He was lying on the bed, but he says he was not sleeping. And lying on the bed when we are not sleeping means he wanted to rest.
Yes.
And in that moment, then God begins to show him some things, which necessarily mean that there's no moment when a prophet is not prophesying. Like you rightly said, that you have to hear God by every facet of your life, which means you may intend to do something totally different, but still God will come in that area and begin to talk to you. And this is exactly what happened here. And the other interesting thing is he's lying down and the sign is appearing on the ceiling, which is above him. The ceiling is up there on the roof, it's in the sky. And it follows that the problem that would have messed or taken the vice president's life was going to happen in the sky.
So do you think there's any significance with the word that he mentioned, remaps? Because if you look at remaps, you may think it's maybe a shortening of Ramaphosa, or remaps, and he kept repeating it because it seemed incomplete. Do you think there's a significance there?
Man of God, I think in every prophetic statement that is given, there is always a significance. In as much as it might have seemed like it's a short cut for the name Ramaphosa, but remaps on its own, it has got a technical meaning.
Exactly.
Yeah, meaning to say it had to do with something with a retuning or fine tuning or a tweaking of an engine.
Yeah, it specifically says performance tuning of engine management systems, improving the efficiency of the engine and giving the engine increased power output, torque and fuel economy. So, like he's saying, it's actually a technical term to do with engines.
And we're saying this is something that was given to a man who knows nothing of aviation. He's not an aircraft engineer.
He is not trained.
That's the exact reason why maybe he continued to inquire from God, saying remaps, because to him as it was coming, since he's not like given to the technical jargons of in aviation, it was something that did not just click at that moment. But as we came to understand, like now, like my brother has just given, it was specifically to do with the problem that was going to come with the aircraft, something to do with the engine and the problem that the engine was having. So in the prophecy, as the man of God gave it, it came to him, but maybe the jargon that was there did not just come straight to him to give him a meaning, but he could he could just get the name remaps, yes. And I think that's why he continued to investigate and to inquire from God what this meant until God began to reveal the whole thing to him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the fact that the word remaps rhymes with the surname of the vice president, and that we are saying it's actually a technical term. Remaps is a technical term. I think probably it explains why Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa took so long in this revelation. And it also explains why it was a sign. Because when you just look at a sign, be it a trademark, a sign or whatever, it would mean you can say a lot about just one sign.
Yes.
If you look at any sign about, a sign representing any brand, they can actually explain to you that we chose this sign because of 1, 2, they can give you so many reasons.
Yes.
And probably this explains why it came as a sign. Because, you may think that it's God into city lingo, like remaps. My surname is Kwaramba, but I grew up being called Quacks. People have got this tendency of shortening the same name and giving another name altogether. And when he said he saw a sign and it was written remaps. Now, you at the end, when God reveals the full name, you may be tempted to think, so it was a shortening of Ramaphosa, which makes sense still, but we are saying remaps is also a technical term.
Yes.
So it explains why the man of God, Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa, had to take time conversing with God so that the sign would be unpegged.
Yes.
And that close relationship with God, whereby he would bring out the exact meaning of what God intends, clearly interpreting the voice of God. I think that kind of spiritual expertise can only come from a true prophet.
I think I just wanted to add before you come in, my brother, that what's interesting also about this, I think all of us, we have had the experiences or encounters where we dream at some point and we see things in our dreams. But to show that Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa is a man who understands God, dines with God, and he has been with God for a very, very long time. He's a man who doesn't just see signs and ignores them. He saw it. Maybe if it was me, it's something that I would just have thought, maybe it was just a dream, and I would just leave it at that. But the fact that he continued to pursue on it, and as you might have heard in the prophecy, that it's something that took from one evening to the next evening. He persisted and continued asking and inquiring from God. This cannot just be an ordinary thing. This cannot just be an ordinary sign. What is it about? And to me, it just showed that Prophet Makandiwa is a man who understands God, that God does not just communicate and does not just send signs for the sake of sending them to us. Whenever a sign is given, there is need of an interpretation. And thank God, there he is. He is the same man having the vision and is the same man interpreting. We have seen in the Bible there are men who would have dreams and spend days, if not weeks, without having an interpretation until they have to reach out to somebody to bring an interpretation. But we are privileged to have such a man. He brings even the interpretation of what he would have seen. And there it was. Everything then became clearer after he continued to inquire from the Lord. Yes.
And Pastor, you are saying that even that ability to pick that this is a sign, it's a special ability that Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa has.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very, very powerful point, because any other man could have decided to rest, and God could have sent many, many signs.
Yes.
And somebody could not have developed that desire to know what it is. And I think That's a very, very, very important.
Maybe just to say, you know what? The Prophet Makandiwa might not have been the first person who received this message.
Yeah.
It could have come through different people. But the fact that they were not able to pursue it and to seek after the face of the Lord and to search out the matter, as it were, it never came to them. But here he is, the man of God, Prophet Makandiwa. He understands what it is when God begins to communicate, that obviously there is a meaning and there is something that needs to be dug out of that kind of a sign that is coming. And we got what we have just seen in the video.
And even if you look at the time frame, most men, 3 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours into inquiring from the Lord, you can then rest and say, we can rest the case. God has not spoken. It's okay. But when you are in a revelation from one night to the next night, and you're still seeking the face of God concerning a word that is incomplete, that just shows you how close to the heart of God and how attuned Prophet Makandiwa is to hearing the voice of God.
That's it. That's it. Powerful.
And this clearly shows his passion about the things of God.
Yes.
Because understanding that God is saying something and being so patient, he mentioned prayer about 3 times when he was explaining the length of that revelation, how much time he took up until everything became clear. That kind of passion is not just ordinary passion. You know, it's something supernatural. And that kind of passion can only develop when a man loves people. Right? He knows that when God speaks, he has got a special message for his people. And because of the love that Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa has for people, he kept on, you know, like in the way he says it. I laughed when I was watching that video. I smiled because I said, the way he's telling us, it's like he's in such a close friendship with God. They were conversing with God. And for a man to develop such a relationship with God, it's because he knows, he understands his calling. And not only that, it also shows that he loves the people. Because imagine if he didn't have that tenacity to closely go after the presence of the Lord until this information was clearly brought out to him by God, we would be in a different scenario right now. Some families would be mourning. There would be a lot of pain, you know, in South Africa right now. But because of his love for the people, he managed to carefully and consistently, patiently, you know, negotiate with God until the information came out.
There is a statement that the man of God just said as he was caught up in this revelation. He said, I asked God, why are we talking about maps?
Yes.
I when I listened to that statement where he said, why are we talking about maps? To me, it showed and revealed. Yes.
Not why are you.
Not why are you.
But why are
we. Now, it's a meeting already. This is a discussion that is taking place between the prophet of God and the giver of the prophecy, who is God himself. And they are more like, the way he said it to me, in a figure I saw as if they are seated and they are discussing. So why are we talking about maps? And right there, it just reminded me of how God and Moses were closely related and closely in touch, to a point that Moses, as it was, the Bible says, he was a man who could speak to God face to face. Unlike any other prophet, they could hear God through dreams, through visions, and in different ways. But Moses was a man who could talk to God face to face. And in that statement on its own, to me, it just revealed that Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa was right face to face with God. And he's now asking, but God, why are we talking about maps? And look at this. He didn't even say remaps. He now said, why are we talking about maps?
Yes.
I think this is something profound.
Exactly. You just said Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa maintaining that relationship with the giver of the prophecy. But it's so interesting as well that God is the giver of the prophecy and He's also the giver of the gift. And if you recall in some of his so classical teachings, Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa always emphasizes the need to maintain a relationship with the giver of the gift, so that the gift will remain very, very effective and so efficient. He says, any man of God is supposed to maintain a very good relationship with the giver of the gift. And this is exactly what you're talking about. God is giving the prophecy, but He's also the giver of this gift.
Exactly.
And you are saying, Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa said, why are we? Which means it's like there are people having an agenda to discuss. And it's so exciting.
Man of God, look at this. From the start, he said he saw remaps. And now he's inquiring from God and he's saying, why are we talking about maps? It's no longer, why are we talking about remaps? I thought he was going to say, why are we talking about remaps? But he said, why are we talking about maps here? Now, to me, somehow, it then pointed to another direction. That in as much as remaps might have been referring to a shortcut to a name, but the maps here, it was now something to do with a geographical location, probably of the name of the person. Now, a change from where he is physically to another location, in this case, South Africa, and possibly to an exact point where this incident or this event was going to take place. God was now moving him in the spheres. Yes, and he was now being given a location of where this whole thing was going to take place, more like on a map.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa said he was asking God, what is it? Is there anything that we need to adjust in the prophecy when he was giving out the prophecy? And like he's saying, when you hear the word remaps, you may naturally think it means remapping.
Yes, yeah.
Just redoing something. And like he's asking, is there anything that we need to adjust? That would be like the very the literal thing that would come to anybody's mind, that God is talking about remapping. But because of his desire to hear the voice of God, God clarified everything, and it gave us a whole lot of many prophecies within this prophecy.
And the confidence to say, or should I say the certainty to say, is there anything that we need to adjust? And to know that he has the power to adjust. He knows that God has given him the power to adjust. So he's saying, God, you've given me the power to adjust. What can we adjust? So he's saying, is there a situation that needs us to take a closer look at? And you can work through me, you can administrate your power through me, and I can adjust the situation that's on the ground. This prophecy was made on the 18th of March at Life Heaven. And 3 days later, on the 21st of March, newspapers everywhere were talking about the incident that happened, where the vice president was unable to attend a very, very important meeting due to a fault that happened in his plane. That's not a coincidence, not at all.
It's not.
The prophetic was at work.
Yes.
And that prophecy came to pass.
Yes. Just before we talk about what happened 3 days after Men of God, it is very important that we emphasize on the fact that Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa kept on praying to God about the sign. He kept on praying. He kept on praying until you go to the following day, evening again. And then he actually said, then God told him to understand what he meant. At the end of that particular revelation, when things were becoming very clear to him, God said, understand what I mean. And then he told us that God said, pray about his family and his life. And then he says that is the time when the full name now appeared. And then in his own words, Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa said the word Ramaphosa appeared. And then he said, CYRIL Ramaphosa in South Africa, there. Right. And it's, he always says, even when you are reading the Bible, don't rush.
Yes.
And thinking about this, that the Life Haven is here in Harare, and the Vice President of the Republic of South Africa, CYRIL Ramaphosa, is in South Africa, in Joburg. And this is over 1,200 kilometers between these places. And he is saying, CYRIL Ramaphosa in South Africa, there. And this is a very, very critical ability of the prophetic ministry, to be able to travel in the spirit or to locate an incident in any location in the world. He is not like restricted to people at the Life Haven, because they never checked in the Vice President of South Africa at the Life Haven. He was not there, Pastor. He was not at the Life Haven.
Yes, sure.
There were people there with the prophet at Life Haven. And then he is mentioning a name to say CYRIL Ramaphosa in South Africa there. And this is a very, very important thing to know when you have a prophet in your life, that the way he protects you, it's not like you have to be with him physically. Wherever he goes, you are there. But that link, that ability of Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa to see incidents before they happen in faraway incidents, it's a very critical ability.
Yeah, maybe just to add on what the man of God is saying, what interested me the most when he finally mentioned the name to the people that were gathered, I thought the Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa, is for us. When I'm saying us, I mean United Family International Church members.
Yeah.
But as I later on realized, after he gave that prophecy, I then realized that a prophet is not for this ministry, as it were, but a prophet is given to the people, is given to the world to help out in different situations.
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, I don't remember if ever I have seen the Honorable Vice President, CYRIL Ramaphosa, at any of our gatherings. And to that effect, it showed to me that he may not be part of our members, as we consider members here. But the prophetic was able to locate a person, who is not even part of us, as it were. But interestingly, that's how God operates. He gives a prophet to the nations. He gives a prophet to people. And it's up to us to utilize him. And there is a question that you posed earlier on, man of God, when you talked about the prophecy being fulfilled 3 days later, on the 21st of March, 2016. That one, to me, it was striking. The prophet of God gave this prophecy on the 18th. And only 3 days later, the newspapers were awash with news that the vice president had failed to attend a very important commemoration in Uitenhage, where there was a massacre of about 19 people in 1985. Such an important event, and the vice president failing to attend. And the reason being, like the prophet had said, there was a problem. with the plane. And where was the problem? It was in the engine.
Yeah.
And on that alone, look, with how important that schedule was, even if the plane had a problem, I would assume there would always be alternative ways of getting to the event.
Yes.
But he didn't manage. He didn't get into any alternative. Yeah. To me, it's profound. It just shows how powerful the prophetic is. Yes. in being able to control certain events, even if there was an alternative, but that alternative did not come to help out the situation. Because I understand from newspaper readings that the problems that were on the plane, they needed about an hour to be sorted out. But was there no other alternative to have taken the vice president to this very important occasion? But there wasn't. Because already there was something that was being engineered by the prophet, so that he could not fly, he could not take off, only to preserve his life, because the enemy, the devil, had targeted his life. So he simply was grounded and he couldn't attend.
Yes. Viewers, let's take a break. We'll be back.